If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend 008, aka Khalid Muhammad from Command 11. Below him, my good friend Randy Nance from back home in Texas, combat wounded Green Beret. And below me, our in-house CIA operative, aka 007, Jeff MD, author extraordinaire, soon-to-be movie star extraordinaire. Top secret stuff.
Director, producer.
But you have to go over and check out deaddropintel.org to get the full story, because it's confidential intelligence on that one. All right. So I did a special episode last night for a specific reason. We had to get caught up because we had some other events happening, especially the Charlie Kirk assassination. And last night was the last episode of the second series of 12 videos. Tonight we are starting the third series, which is called the follow-on strikes, essentially. So we have 12 episodes to go in this one. So it'll be 4 this week, 4 next week, and 4 the following week. Tonight we're going to be discussing immediate secondary attacks, how attackers plan for multiple waves to ensure the chaos continues on, and on tertiary attacks, and so on and so forth. But before we dive into that, we're going to hit the conflicted question. If you're not familiar with this, conflictedthegame.com, 14 card games that are set in a post-apocalyptic scenario. They always involve some element of morality, hence the name Conflicted. You have been approached by a post-apocalyptic community, which is very well known and respected, and they have invited you to join them. Food, water, and comfort await you and your family. However, there is only room for you and your family. Your buddies and their families depend on you and your skills, but the life you all live now is full of every kind of struggle. Would you join the community for the sake of your family and leave your buddies, or would you stay with your friends and continue to make your family suffer, and why? That's a doozy of a question tonight. So hang with us. We'll answer this one at the end of the broadcast. We want to see your answers. Put them in the live chat, whatever platform you're on. Throw them down below in the comment section. That works as well. So first up in the Command 11 SITREP situation report is here from Khalid. So HTS terrorists set fire to the Christian village of Kafra as punishment for reporting on a local victim who was tortured to death in Jolani's prisons. The village of Kafra and Wade Ali or Al Nasera was deliberately set afire in retribution of the publication of news about the death of Kafra native Mr. Milad Aziz al-Farik, who was tortured to death in the prisons of warlord Abu Muhammad al-Jolani. HTS has also adopted using drones, to start fires and collective punishment against minority communities. In recent months, hundreds of fires have broken out in Alawite and Christian areas of Western Syria, destroying thousands of acres of land. So let me get everybody on stage here. And Khalid, go ahead and take it away as far as this latest news on what a piece of shit Jolani is.
Look, Jolani, we knew it from the very beginning that he was going to kill the minorities. He was asked 2 months ago by a reporter, what about the violence against minorities? His response was amazing. I can't stop it. It'll go on for the next 2 or 3 years. This is the president of a country saying, I cannot stop the minority violence. Today, ISIS executed one of the HTS guys that was part of the general security. You have now got HTS fighting ISIS, HTS fighting SDF, and they're using drones to set fire to minority communities, whether you're Alawati, whether you're Druze, or whether you're Christian. He is ethnically cleansing Syria, and nobody cares. I mean, the whole world is quiet. And yesterday, I think it was Barack put up, Tom Barack, the ambassador, put up a picture with an admiral really proud of himself and showing it off. And I was like, are you an idiot?
Yes. That's the short and accurate answer. Yes.
That's the
Tom
short
Barrack
answer,
is a
yeah.
complete idiot.
Syria's out of control. I mean, we are going to end up seeing a lot of violence in Syria. And there's no way to stop it as long as Jolani's in power.
I don't disagree. So next one up, let me make sure I get everybody on stage over here as well. All right, next one up is for you, Jeff. Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir Tech, and be mindful of what just happened. They need to go to bed scared. They need to wake up scared. Safe means that the other person is scared. The CEO of Palantir is part of the problem. Killing political enemies abroad is okay, which is what Alex Karp implied. It is only a matter of time until it is normalized at home. Palantir is right at the center of the normalization of political murder worldwide. Palantir, as we've said numerous times, is the real problem for the entire planet. 2 minutes and 17 seconds.
Americans are the most loving, God-fearing, fair, least discriminatory people on the planet. And they want to know that if you're waking up and thinking about harming American citizens, or if American citizens are taken hostage and kept in dungeons, or if you're a foreign power sending fentanyl to poison our people, something really bad is going to happen to you and your friends and your cousins and your bank account and your mistress and whoever was involved. And you know, when Americans are spending $1 trillion on defense, what I want and what I think my peers want is, why are these people keeping our citizens hostage, torturing our people, attacking our allies, maligning us in what was once called the United Nations, basically a discriminatory institution against anything good? We need to stand up, and those people need to be scared. And that's why this conference is so important, because we have the best products in the world, and we cannot have parity. Our adversaries do not have our moral compunction. If it's even, they will take advantage of our niceness, kindness, our desire to be at home in Nebraska or New Hampshire or wherever we live in our peaceful environments. And they need to wake up scared and go to bed scared. And if you give that to the American people will go back and say, and honestly, probably shouldn't say this is why I thought the Democrats were going to lose the election, why they did, because people want to live in peace. They want to go home. They do not want to hear your woke pagan ideology. They want to know they're safe. And safe means that the other person is scared. That's how you make someone safe. And the average American person understands this. Unfortunately, many of the intellectually captured institutions, funneled and intellectually owned by the Berkeley faculty, do not. And that's what they want, but sure as hell what I want. And that's what Palantir and all the people in this room, I hope, we're here to serve the American people. And my version of service is the soldiers are happier, the enemies are scared, and Americans go back to enjoying the fact that we're the only one with a real tech scene in this country, and we're going to win everything. That's how I see it.
All right. So, Jeff, this one's yours. Before you get started, is it just me, or does that guy, is he a graduate of the same speaking school as Gavin Newsom, where you flail your hands around and, as you say, everything?
There may be. There's a lot of people that talk with their hands. I knew a girl that if you just held her hands down, she couldn't talk at all, which was always wanted to hold her hand down. Now, I mean, there's, this idea that, everybody should be scared of us. Well, our enemies, but not necessarily everybody, because, let's face it, you want to be the good guy. That doesn't mean you lose. That, we don't do whatever other people do. We don't go through and raise villages to the ground. We don't go through and just systematically kill women and children. That's not us. And if you start doing that kind of crap, you lose your soul. That said, if you've got a cartel that's sending fentanyl in the United States, and you can put a crosshair on the forehead of the guy in charge, something to be said for that. We did it with Al Qaeda. Every time a new Al Qaeda leader would come up, you got eliminated. The Israelis did it with Hamas. The last thing you wanted to be in Hamas or Hezbollah was an up and comer, because that just meant you were the next guy on the hit parade.
Right.
But you've got to be careful with that, because then you risk becoming worse than the people you're fighting. Got to maintain your humanity.
Yeah, I think there's a boomerang effect here as well. Like you were mentioning, we don't do these things. And if we do those things, like kill women and children or vulnerable people, it's going to incentivize, those people to do the exact same thing and potentially worse to us. So can't say that I disagree with that at all. All right. Next one up is for Randy here. Let me get it pulled up. And it's from our friend Sarah Adams, by the way. Oh, look, it's time to whitewash the Haqqanis again. This is literally a representative of our government. We did not vote for this. So this Zalmay Khalilzad says, an interesting interview with Anas Haqqani, Afghanistan, India, Pakistan. So, Randy, I'll hand it over to you here to get your thoughts on anybody in our government thinking that the Haqqanis, the Haqqani terror network, are the good guys. I can't believe it.
Well, it's, let's look at what Khalid's been talking about, right? We put Jelani in charge of Syria. It seems to be, unfortunately, a common theme that we do this. I can't, we're not in the position to understand what all they had to weigh in to make these decisions, but they don't make sense to us, right? It's just like what Jeff was just talking about. Everybody can't be afraid of you. Christianity's prove it, and we've had great leaders prove that, well, let's just say through time, we've seen both leaders, right? We see the leader that everybody's afraid of. They kill everybody. And sure, there's a certain amount of respect that those people carry. But you also have to realize people do not like them at all either. So the first chance to screw you over, that's exactly what's going to happen to those leaders. Or they end up in dying lonely deaths by themselves. Christianity, and then we've had good leaders prove that through ethical and moral, coercion is the way to go. You know what I mean? When you ethically and you morally shape things, you earn more respect that way than if you earned it through fear. So to me, these people, we already know who the bad guys are. I don't know why we're still working with them, or why somebody like this would think the Haqqanis are the play. But again, we've also talked about, look what happened after we removed Saddam, Gaddafi, and everybody else. It just destabilized the region. So it's kind of a precarious situation. And again, I don't know what the metrics are that they had to make their decision, but like I said earlier, it doesn't make sense to us.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with you, Randy. So next one up, coming back to you, Khalid. Just pull it up here. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll let you expand on it. But Afghan-American hostage Mahmoud Habibi's execution is moving forward. Habibi still in Kandahar, Afghanistan. So I'm just going to stop it there. At Apex Guard HQ is who posted this. I'm going to throw it in the chat just in case anybody wants to read up on it. But we'll get Khalid's take on this first.
Mahmoud Habibi was taken by the Taliban in 2021 or 22. I'm not sure which year it was exactly. The U.S. has been trying to get him back, and the Taliban has put up all kinds of rules and conditions. Right now, Zalmay Khalilzad, who is the biggest POS that I know, he is in Afghanistan. He orchestrated the interview in India with Anas Haqqani, and you literally gave a terrorist free reign to say whatever he wanted. And I watched the interview and I was shocked, because you are now in the process of shutting off the internet in Afghanistan. That was just announced about 2 hours ago, that they're turning off the internet in Afghanistan. And you are abusing people. People aren't being able to eat, and you're promoting yourself. We need Habibi back. And right now, there's Donald Trump's special advisor for hostages is in Afghanistan, negotiating the release of, I think, 5 hostages that are still in the Taliban's custody. We don't know what we're going to have to give up. Last time we got hostages out, we removed the Haqqanis from the FBI wanted list, and we removed the bounties on them as well. Who knows what we have to give up this time?
Yeah, good question. So I've got one more left here. So I'm going to go to both Jeff and Randy for their comments on this one, because this is an interesting one. Adib Ahmad Nasir from Pakistan was just arrested in Utah for allegedly planting a bomb under a news vehicle. Adil Nasir was also arrested. They're both facing multiple felonies, including threat of terrorism and being held without bail. So this was in Utah, and apparently the bomb was dysfunctional. The IED was dysfunctional, so it didn't go off. But somebody asked me about this earlier today, and I said, look, I haven't dove deep into it, but when we talk about the long war carrying on for years and years, this is the direct fallout of leaving the southern border wide open for 4 years and being invaded by hundreds of thousands of SIA, special interest aliens, which basically means terrorist. What do you think of this one, Jeff?
Well, it's not that surprising, really. You think about all the world's attention right now is on Utah because of Charlie Kirk. So if you want to make a splash and you want to get people to notice, you do it there.
Good point.
You don't do it in Minot, North Dakota. You go where the cameras are. And how to even make it more spectacular is blow up the guys holding the cameras. What they were seeking to achieve, I have no idea. I don't know who these guys are affiliated with or anything else. And the names and the ages, I'm thinking it's father, son. You know, they
makes sense.
Same surname, same middle name, and they're 28 years apart. So I'm thinking father, son. That had been confirmed yet, but the bomb itself was not particularly sophisticated.
Nope.
Which means they're not professionals. So who knows? Maybe they're just trying to make a splash. Maybe they're trying to prove their bona fides to the cause. Who knows? But we'll have to see.
Yeah, appreciate it, Jeff. Randy, I want to give you a chance to weigh in on this one as well.
Well, I thought it was funny. I've noticed the same thing on the 2 names, except they weren't both on what you just posted. But what I saw earlier had Justice was in the younger one's name. And I'm like, where did he get a name like Justice? Now, that could have been a typo. It very well may have been, because I've never heard Justice in a Middle Eastern name.
Right.
Ever.
Big fans of David Justice.
Maybe. But I don't know. Has it even hit the mainstream media yet?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. Did it finally? But, it's been on social media, but you don't see, hell, it was under a Fox News vehicle, and there's still no real coverage of it. Fortunately for us, these guys are idiots, and they built a shitty product, and it didn't go off. That was in our favor. We should be happy about that. But I'm curious to see what becomes of it, if anything.
Yeah, likewise. All righty. So let me see here. We've got we're ready to dive into the main topic tonight. Before we do that, I just want to mention today's sit rep. So if you go to survivaldispatch.news, it'll take you to our Substack. When we're broadcasting live, the video's at the top of the page like it is here. If I hit play, it would go there. But right below that is the daily situation report. And we give this stuff away for free. So if you go to survivaldispatch.news, sign up for a free account, you'll get the daily sit reps, which all the way down to my signature here is free. The only thing paying members get that's different as far as sit reps, they get all of our sources. But I would encourage you to go sign up there, because frequently when we reference stuff on the podcast, like PDFs and those sort of things, that's where you'll find them. You'll find them on the daily sit rep. So just go to survivaldispatch.news, sign up for a free account, and we appreciate your support. All right, so let's dive into the main topic. So this is the follow-on attacks that follow 9/11 2.0, the beginning of 9/11 2.0. And all of this stuff is very well planned out. I'm going to have Khalid speak to that in just a minute, but they're very strategic in these secondary and tertiary attacks and beyond that to have a specific effect. And if nothing else, they want to inflict psychological damage on us nationally, right? It's the same thing as 9/11 1.0. You know, everybody we were rightfully so, we were all freaked out by it, but they sat there and laughed their asses off in Afghanistan because of all the things that came in effect from Patriot Act 1.0. They took our civil liberties away. They made your 80-year-old mother take her shoes off at the airport because God forbid she might be a terrorist. But don't profile. Just because it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck doesn't mean it's a duck in their la-la land, you know, their bizarro world that these guys live in. But regardless, we know that's just not the take. It's really about doing psychological damage above and beyond just the physical damage that's done to us. And it's all calculated. It's 100% calculated. And they're using our rights and freedoms against us. They're exploiting, you know, the constitutional clause for freedom of religion to say, well, you know, you can't ban us, you know, because this is our religion. It's not, I don't see it as a religion. I think that radical Islamic jihadis, that it's I don't know what you want to call it. It's a broken model for running a government based on a flawed interpretation of the good word. So Khalid, I'm going to flip over to you here to explain why they do these things in stages and why they're so calculated and the psychological impact that you've seen firsthand.
Yeah. The way you're dead on right with radical Islam. They use Islam as a tool. They don't follow what the Quran says. They just use it to indoctrinate you, to push dirty, bad thoughts into your head. That, you know, the Quran says this, Quran says this. When you come down to the attacks, look, the first day they are going to go after your police. They're going to go after your fire department. They're going to go after your commercial areas. They're going to go after your hospital. Once they've done that, then you'll see cyber attacks. You'll see electrical grid go down. You'll see all of your systems that generate everything for the citizens. Those will be shut down. Then they'll start going house to house. And they'll be asking you, they'll be dressed like a police officer. They'll be dressed like a fireman. They'll go to your house. They'll knock on the door. And as soon as you open the door, they'll ask a couple questions and then they'll shoot you. This is what they've got planned out. The cyber attacks are specifically for three different things. Number one, the government. They're going to hit Langley. They're going to hit the U.S. Senate.
Yes.
And they're going to hit your technology centers in Silicon Valley. That's your cyber attack. When they go after the electrical grid, that's when China comes in. China comes in and they take out your electrical grid. Without blowing anything up, they use cyber attack to take out that system. This is so well planned that it is going to cripple 15 cities. And then the problem is the carry-on effect. You have about 11,000 terrorists that are trained and in the country right now. They'll hit other cities. While you're trying to clean up the cities that you've already had, they'll go and hit other cities. We've seen it here in Pakistan. They'll hit an army base, and then tomorrow they'll come back and they'll hit something else. The next day they'll come back and hit something else. They don't give you time to recover. And that psychological impact is that you start to wonder, where are they going to hit it next? So you're afraid when you leave the house. From 2007 until 2016, here in Pakistan, whenever we left the house, we were praying that we would come back safely, because they were bombing shopping malls, they were bombing car parks, they were bombing movie theaters. Anywhere they could, they blew it up. And that's the plan in the US. And the new normal that you're going to see there is you're going to have to carry a weapon almost at all times, because you don't know when things are going to go off.
So Khalid, would it be safe to say that the overarching purpose of this is to keep Americans fearful while the responders are completely overwhelmed, like nobody's coming to help you? Is that
well, look, if everything goes the way they planned, there won't be any police. They will have wiped out the police. So if your police force is gone, your fire department's gone, who knows who's alive and who isn't alive? So the problem starts from right there, that if you lose your police force and somebody comes to your door in a police uniform, you're going to talk to him like a cop. You're not going to go, oh no, he's not a cop. And his intent is to come and put a bullet in you because you're hiding in your house. So they've done the damage outside. Now they come and hit your houses. Those 10 to 15 cities, when they're hit, that fear spreads across America that this could happen here. So Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Detroit, Miami, these cities start to be in fear. And what happens is the government will start to implement different policies to try and recover from what's happened. And those policies will mean taking away your civil liberties.
Yep, exactly. So Jeff, I've got one question, but it's come at it from a couple different ways. Number one, Sarah Adams recently explained how she has intel that a lot of these cells that are here are comprised of people from different groups. So just, arbitrary situation here. Let's say you have a terror cell that has one guy from Al Qaeda and then another guy from ISIS and another guy from Hamas and another guy from Hezbollah.
Well, they're just copying us, right? It's
yeah, and it makes it really hard for counterterrorism purposes, and I'd like you to explain that. And then the next part to it would be the timing. How hard is it to get credible intelligence and counterterrorism intelligence when it's this wave that never seems to end and is a constantly evolving dynamic situation?
Well, it's very difficult because our law enforcement is set up to be a forensic organization to investigate crime, not prevent crime. Yeah. And if you look after 9/11, how long did it take them to go through and identify who all the terrorists were and where they had been? It was weeks of investigative work. And I think if you have a large coordinated attack across multiple jurisdictions, they're never going to be able to catch their breath, is the point. And by the time you investigate one attack and you identify the terrorist or two and start looking at known associates and things like that, well, they've already hit 2 or 3 more. And I think one of the problems you're going to run into is they're going to do an attack, maybe a couple. People are going to get all wound up, rightfully so. And then there may not be anything for a few days, and people start to relax. And then once they relax, they get hit again. Yeah. Okay, and it goes on for a day or two, and then nothing. And they start to relax again. Then hit. What you're doing is you're teaching them never relax. Yeah. And if you really want to screw with people, it's like, Randy can tell you, if you put your soldiers on alert constantly 24/7 without end, they lose combat effectiveness because no one can handle that stress, that constant stress forever. And
it doesn't take very long either. It doesn't take very long.
If it does it to battle-hardened soldiers who've been trained for this, what do you think it's going to do to the rank and file public? It's not going to take that long. They're going to be a mess. How many people after 9/11, when the anthrax came out, refused to leave their home or taping their doors and windows shut, all that stuff. And I was a bioweapons guy, and we were considering, okay, we need to set up a safe room that if there is an attack. But I was like going, what are the odds of there being an attack where we are? And the odds are astronomical. But how many people stopped their lives to tape to seal their windows with duct tape and saran wrap? Just unbelievable. You'd be better off just saying, let me just get some antibiotics and I'll pop one every day.
Are you familiar with the psychological condition or conditioning that after something bad happens that people strive to get back to normal? Like they mentally, psychologically just want to get back to normal. Can you speak to that at all?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can see it in war where, there will be, and there's actually photographs of it where cities in Germany or Japan were just obliterated. And then you'll see some old man, raking the debris out of his yard and trying to clean up. And it's like, dude, your whole city just got wiped out, and you're worried about mowing the grass because they're looking for some sense of normalcy, something they can ground their psyche to. Because they're trying to do, they're trying to find an island of normalcy in a world of chaos. And it's human nature because they can't accept what's going on. So they got to find that one little thing to hang on to. It's like the people whose houses are on fire and they run back into the house to get their humble figurines, because they've been collecting them since they were kids. It's like, really? How important is that?
Yeah, great insight. So, Randy, I mean, Khalid and Jeff covered a fair bit of ground there, but I'm wondering, do you have any idea what's the criteria for deciding the timing on the part of the people in the terrorist organization who are in charge of planning the attacks? In other words, how do they decide on the timing? Do you have any insight as far as that's concerned?
Well, I was thinking, this is planning like what we always do, right? A lot of this sounds like now they've just copycatted our system and they're using it against us. No different than when they came out, and it's been probably 15 years, right? There was a time they came out and told us they were going to use our own freedoms against us. Freedom of religion, many things they were going to use against us. So that's what we're looking at, and the timing is it just like if I was going to do a mission, right? We're going to look at what is the most advantageous timing for us, but also that has the biggest effect on the enemy, right? So if these guys are terrorists, so they're going to want to look at where is the most effective time frame where we can kill the most people, fairly easily, right? We don't even have to go looking for them in the beginning. They'll get to that. But in the beginning, they're going to want that big wow factor, just like we saw with the Charlie Kirk assassination, right? Everybody watched that play out over social media and look at the effect it's had ever since. Now we've got a real shit show going, and this was just one man that was killed in the middle of the day. And we have 10 or 15 conspiracy theories already popped up where we thought we'd run out of them. Now we just got a refill. And that's kind of what the terrorists are going to be looking for. They're going to want the biggest bang for the buck, and they're going to want a time frame where it's going to lend to casualty rates being high, and then to have more first responders come because there'll be more of them that are on duty. Then you could take out more of them and more of the vehicles. And again, that each one of those is then going to limit how effective the first responders can and will be, and to the point that they'll be combat ineffective at some point. So that's the kind of timing they're going to look at, which is why we spoke about in the intelligence, it's going to be an event. It'll be a school. It's going to be, I would say it's going to be in the middle of the day, either the morning traffic or afternoon traffic for coming home, because that's when the most people are out. And you could just, if you had the mind to, and you had the resources and you had the people that had the gumption to go do it, you could create a lot of chaos just on that first wow factor. And then think about, a day and a half later when they cut the internet and the power, people will go nuts. You think people are freaking out now?
Yeah, good points, Randy. Appreciate that insight. So that's the first segment. The second segment tonight is on them choosing tactical targets. So call it the second wave, and they choose certain targets for certain reasons, but they kind of all come back to the same thing: the psychological impact of generating fear. So things like hospitals. I just put a couple links in the live chat on this topic. They're vulnerable, high visibility, and a great way to disrupt care for those initial victims, right? Then you've got the first responders that we've talked at length about. By physically attacking them, it demoralizes the entire population, especially the force, the agency that they're working on behalf of. And then you start, creating choke points by hitting bridges, parts of highways, whatever the case may be, to create these choke points. And then you also have disrupting the coordination at the emergency response level. So in our area, they have repeaters on every single intersection in the county that has a stoplight. And to be quite frank, from a physical perspective, it would take nothing to start knocking those out on major thoroughfares. And if they were able to hack into the command center, then they could completely shut down the eyes and ears of the SO plus our city PD here. Then you get into the stuff like, the grid, which we've discussed at length over the past few years on survival dispatch, city water, your regular comms, communications, whether it be internet, voice, 5G, et cetera, et cetera. So the point I think that Randy was making was that once you've got everybody scared shitless because of the heinous terrorist acts, you go and you shut off all the communications for the majority of people, then that level of fear, the psychological damage goes to a whole new level because they have no way of finding out what's coming next or what's already started next without them being aware of it.
Well, what it also occurred to me, Chris, is, this is the environment they're already living in. The terrorist, when Khalid was walking that through, and it's been kind of slowly coming on to me, but this last time on this show, as he just went through it, I thought to myself, this is exactly what we had in Afghanistan or Iraq. Certainly after the initial invasion and everything was over, now we're all in there. This is the same type of environment that they've been living in. So when they come over here and they create that environment over here, they definitely have the upper hand because they've already lived this. Americans aren't used to this. And, it's something we haven't seen in this country before since probably before we actually came a country. When the Wild West was the Wild West, that's what we're looking at.
So interesting timing on your part, Randy, because the next thing that I was going to throw out there is you're looking at IEDs, VBIEDs, suicide bombers.
They're going to bring it to us.
And
that's
those
what they want to do.
Right. And that's all the things that they're used to. It's just interesting timing on your part to throw in that comment as far as where I was going with it. So, Khalid, I'm going to come to you to finish up describing this. And if you could start with the targets that cause the most psychological damage and explain what they are, why they cause so much psychological damage, and what your high-level overview is with regards to their security or lack thereof.
Okay, when it comes to targets, the things that we've heard from the camps is schools, shopping centers, offices, police stations.
Khalid, hate to interrupt, but can you clarify for our audience what you mean when you use the word camps? I know what you're speaking to, but some people in the audience may not know.
Okay, in Afghanistan, you have terror camps, and we have assets inside those camps. So we see the training, we know what they're doing, we know their movement because we're actually inside of the terrorist camps.
Thank you.
So our intelligence actually comes live to us. The difference between us and the guys on Twitter, on X, that are posting comments, we're getting live intelligence. We're not reading a report. We've got guys inside the terror camps. They're seeing how they're running. They're seeing how they're operating. They're seeing what they're doing, and they're telling us. And that's what develops our threat assessment reports. When we put out a threat assessment, it's based on real live intelligence. It's not based on something we read. The problem is when you start talking about high value targets, that's what we're talking about, is high value targets. There's nothing higher than a school. You take out a school and that is huge casualties. A university, a police station, a fire department, a shopping mall, an office complex, and then lead it all into a hospital. Now, when we get to the hospital, we've got multiple problems. Number one, all those casualties you've created on all those other places, they have nowhere to go. So you've either got to go to a small clinic and then move to a big hospital someplace else, or you've got to back off and say, well, there's nothing we can do. And whatever first aid or whatever treatment the EMTs can do, they do. But what you're going to see is, just like Randy said, What we see in Pakistan, they're going to create for you in the US, because the intent they have is that they want revenge for Afghanistan and Iraq.
Before I go to Jeff, do me a favor, Khalid, and address the question of what insider participation there is in planning these operations. Because as you pointed out, I believe last week, there were 2 ISIS affiliates in South Florida that
Yep.
were caught. Explain that situation to people, just so it's another piece of this very complex puzzle.
You're asking about the surveillance people, or you're asking about the teams?
The 2 ISIS guys in South Florida that worked at the hospital that were planning attacks,
Yeah.
kinetic
Yeah.
attacks.
Look, what you've had is because you've let in so many people with forged passports, crossing the border illegal. What you end up getting is when you get to the US, you get a ID, you get a social security number, and you're able to get a job someplace. So when you take a job in a hospital, you have access to a lot of information, and you have access to a lot of areas. I will tell you this, just a few days ago, there was a major terror cell in London that was taken down. There were 15 terrorists and their handler living in one house, and MI6 took them down. You'll never hear that on the news. We know about it because we get intelligence reports. What you end up having is the guys who are working in the hospital, they're trying to figure out where they can place explosives, where they can hide weapons. Because once you're into the hospital, you want to lock the doors so nobody can get in. That's part of the siege mentality. You need to make sure you have weapons inside. It's like I said about that one hospital that has a room that only Muslims can enter, and they've got a key card entry. So what you end up having is they have used your constitution against you.
Yeah.
Freedom of religion, freedom of speech. I mean, you couldn't do what the Muslim Brotherhood is doing in Pakistan, because we won't allow it. But because of your constitution, they're able to use that constitution against you, use those rights against you, and be able to get jobs, be able to get information, be able to work, and at the same time be looking for where they can put bombs. Now, let's say, for an example, London, 15 terrorists. The amount of damage with 15 people that you could do to London, if you had IEDs, car bombs, you could take out half of London. And that's what's planned for the US. So when we look at it, we're looking at it from the point of view of, you're going to hit a school, that causes psychological damage. You go to an office complex, that causes more damage. You create a system where you're giving someone who's not even being attacked PTSD. Because in their mind, they're going, I'm next, I'm next, I'm next. And that fear stays with them.
I appreciate that clarification. That was an awesome answer, Khalid. So, Jeff, really specific question here. How has Israel addressed this over the past, 8 decades, as far as living in this constant environment of, potential terrorist acts on a regular basis? Does their society live in fear, or have they found a way to keep it from being in fear all the time and just being aware?
Well, I think they've gotten so used to it. It's like living in a country that's you're at war, and you may get bombed. It's like Britain in World War II. You never knew when a German V2 rocket or a V1 or a bomber could come by and hit you, and you kind of slowly got used to it. And the Israelis have been putting up with it since 1948. So if anyone's used to it, it's them.
Yep.
It used to be every Israeli household had a rifle, because everybody was in the army or the army reserves, and they kind of got away from that in the last 15, 20 years, which I think is really dumb, and it showed how stupid that was in October when Hamas attacked, because a lot of those people, their only defense was a safe room. You know, they didn't have a Galil in their closet like they used to. If you go to Switzerland, most homes have an assault rifle. I mean, a real assault rifle, not a make-believe assault rifle, not one that looks mean, but one that is mean, because so many of the people are in their version of the National Guard. And, you know, they're in a situation where they're like Israel, they can only lose one war. But if you notice, in World War II, Germany never invaded Switzerland because they knew once they got past Vienna, it was going to be a hard slog and it was going to cost them too much manpower and material. So they just kind of left them alone. But the Israelis, you know, I think they kind of got used to it, but they also got a little bit complacent. They'd have a little bit of an attack here, a little bit of an attack there, but they haven't had a real war since arguably 1973. I mean, yeah, they've had incursions where they'd launch rockets and then they invaded Lebanon and that kind of stuff, but they haven't been invaded by a legit foreign power since 1973. And every time they've been invaded, I think there's been 5 times now, 4 or 5 times, they've always won. But this is a whole different kind of war. This is an asymmetrical war. And the Israelis are very good at dealing with it. They're very much alert and on their toes, and everybody's vigilant. But just the other day, they had several people killed.
At a bus stop.
I think at a bus stop. You know, it happens. Sadly, it happens all the time. They just kind of get used to it.
Yeah, we've got friends who live in Switzerland, and they've got mandatory military service. You have to join between the ages of 18 and 21. And if you object because it's against your conscience, you have to do a shit ton of public service work. It goes way longer than what the time would be required just while you were in the military. So interesting stuff. Randy, first question for you is, when they attack the transportation networks, like say subways, buses, and shut roads down, explain how deadly those become as far as traps. Like, they're essentially funneling rats through a trap where there's no exit at the end. It's death related. Have we done anything like that by chance?
Not that I know of. But, you know, even in the beginning of the Iraqi war, you know, after the first 3 weeks went by, and then literally I in my unit, we sat for 2 months waiting to leave, right? And in those 2 months, the whole landscape changed. Wow. And as I mentioned, when those criminals came out later, you know, they are out on the roads, and they're on the roads that are mainly traveled. But then, you know, it's like any other bad guy. What are you going to do? It's the same thing we did, you know, like I said, back in the Western days. If you know the landscape, and the bad guys do, they know right where to sit, because there, as you mentioned earlier, there's going to be certain choke points that all society has to go through. So, you know, those are going to be the areas that they're going to target. Why? Because, again, it's the most effective thing, right? Yeah, it's called asymmetric warfare. And, you know, we had an asymmetric warfare group. I think that it was, I don't know if they're still out right now or not, but we definitely had them for probably 15 years, right? And they did quite a bit. It's amazing the stuff that they got done. Now, those were also professionals, but I think that these people that we're going to see come here are going to be professional criminals. They're going to be professional terrorists. These aren't going to be probably like the guys that just lit the fuse under the Fox 13 vehicle and it didn't go off. I don't think we're going to get that lucky with these folks. They're going to know what they're doing. These are going to be people that are hardened, that know what they're doing. So they are going to pick the areas, which is what they're doing now, to where it channels you into a certain area, because, again, it's so highly effective because, one, there's not a lot of room to move. You generally have one direction you have to go. You know, we can go back to our own Civil War. I know most people know this fact. We still haven't lost as many people in foreign wars as we killed in our own Civil War against each other. And the bloodiest 8 minutes in U.S. military history is during the Civil War, where we killed, and I think it was Antietam the first day, 16,000 soldiers in 8 minutes. And folks, that's with muzzle loading rifles and maybe some artillery, but nothing like what we have today. But it just lends to that fact. If you know what you're doing and you pick the right area, there's almost no escape.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Real
So-
quick, interesting point of trivia on the Civil War. More Americans, North and South, died at Shiloh, like
Yep.
by noon, than had died in all U.S. wars combined up to that date.
Jeez,
In
that's a lot.
one morning. Shiloh wasn't that big of a battle.
No.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So before we move into the next segment, Linda was asking about the time frame. Linda, I said November through to Ramadan, and
Which
actually
is February, November to
Yes.
February.
February 18th. That's right. I didn't say October. I said November. But actually, I'm going to have you address this, Khalid. What's the significance, the importance of that time frame?
Well, number one, you've got there's a couple of battles that happened during the month of November in Islamic history. Those may be the dates that they use. The advantage you're looking at for them is that it'll be Christmas shopping time, so that everybody will be in the shopping malls. Everyone will be out.
Good point.
So you've got and I hate saying it this way, but you have a target-rich environment. So if you look at the dates of the battles that happened in the Islam, those dates give us a kind of guideline. It could happen here, it could happen here. We are actually thinking that it's going to happen either right before Christmas or right before New Year's.
Yeah.
Because that's your biggest number of people that you can take out. Let me give you an example. Let's say they put a bomb inside of a shopping center, 2 or 3 bombs inside a shopping center, and you detonate those bombs during Christmas shopping. You have created hundreds of casualties. And if you're standing outside the door with rifles, anyone coming out, you open fire. So the significance is the dates that they've picked are major dates because you have so many people in one place.
Good answer. Appreciate that. So we're going to move into the third segment tonight, which is really the element of fear amplification. So when I say amplification, that means raising the level of uncertainty as to whether the attack is finally over or not. You're left hanging. You're left wondering. The second waves that attack law enforcement, other first responders, are intentionally done to basically break morale, to nuke a community's morale. And the effects on first responders, the ones who didn't die, now they're going to be hesitant. They're under even more stress. And in those situations, that's when protocols, SOPs start breaking down. Heck, I mean, we've done episodes with Keith Graves. I think we did one around 2 years ago or so. And he said, look, like if something like this goes down, there's going to be a large contingent of law enforcement officers who say, screw this, I'm going home to protect my family. And so that plays into it as well. But now you end up with, you've got law enforcement and paramedics that are imposters that are killing people. You have, a highly, say, agitated police force. The whole concept of social fabric, social trust is eroded as a result of that. And, the communities that are affected, they lose faith in all the institutions, all the local institutions. And then, of course, we know that the legacy media is they'll pull some bonehead move during all of this where they'll say, well, terrorist attacks are just a normal way of life. Just look at Israel. We have to accept it, something along those lines. But this collective trauma / PTSD will affect the American psyche for decades, much like the Charlie 19 bullshit really screwed up a bunch of kids, really screwed them up. And they are going to battle that the balance of their life, being a product of their environment. So, Khalid, I'm coming to you first as far as the amplification of fear is concerned. You've seen it firsthand in Pakistan.
Yep. Like I said, look, it turns into when you've got bombs going off, I mean, we had 2 hotels. The Marriott in Islamabad was blown completely into rubble. Karachi, we had the counterterrorism division office blown up. At that time, I was living in Karachi. I was a good 15 miles away from the counterterrorism. No, not 15. 10 kilometers away from the counterterrorism division's office. When the bomb went off, my window shook. That's how strong the bomb was.
Wow.
When you start feeling this, because one attack, another attack, another attack, another attack, you don't know when it's going to stop. And that fear keeps you from moving. That fear can last forever, because once the attack starts, like let's take the example. You hit a shopping mall. You wait for first responders to come. You use IEDs on them. You blow them up. Now you've got a hostage situation inside the shopping mall. You open fire and you start killing people. That fear, when they make the video of that and they put it out on Al Jazeera or any of their own social media networks, when that gets into our social media, like X and Facebook, you are going to see a lot of fear, because America's never seen anything like this. When it first started in Pakistan, we had no idea how to handle it. From 2007 until about 2010, 11, we had no strategic plan to handle the terrorists. No, none at all. They were killing people wherever they wanted. From 2007 to 2016, when we finally got the TTP out of Pakistan, we lost 85,000 people.
Wow.
And that sits in here, because 85,000 is not a small number. And that stays with you, because even right now, they're in Swat, they're in Bunir, they're in the Fata region. There are regular attacks on the army and on paramilitary forces. Your mind is constantly wondering, when are they going to hit this city? When are they going to hit this city? That stops you from doing a lot of things. And because America's never seen it before, the psychological effect of this will be much higher in your country.
Yeah, great answer. Appreciate that, Clete. So, Jeff, coming to you on this very specific question. How can media, the legacy media, the infotainment, propagandatainment peddlers, how can they actually worsen the psychological harm? I mean, I trust them all about as far as I can throw them.
Well, I mean, they can do it by several ways. Instead of just, reporting the truth, they start blaming people when they have no idea who they're blaming.
They would never do that. Our media would never do that. Come on.
We saw it with Charlie Kirk. Oh, it was all MAGA people who did it. I was like, yeah, no, it's not. If they would just report the facts, stick to the facts, and stop opining about things they know absolutely nothing about, the world would be such a better place. I mean, how many times have we heard, yes, a 5.56 round will blow the lungs out of your body? It's like, oh my God, the ground's so small they won't let you hunt with it. But they are, part of it is business. They're trying to scoop their rivals and trying to, get out with get it out first. Who cares if it's accurate? We just have the story. It's just like they shout the disinformation and then they whisper the correction. And that just, bad information is devastating. When people are trying to make life and death decisions, they're doing it based on shit information.
Yeah, good point. Great point, Jeff. So
can I add to that?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you can't. Sorry, Clete. Just kidding.
What you're going to see when this starts, you're going to see exactly the same thing that you saw during Charlie 19. They're going to be playing videos over and over that this place has been taken, this place has been taken, this place has been taken. Your legacy media is going to turn this into much more fear. And that's what the terrorists are counting on, is that it will turn into 24 hours coverage on a terrorist attack. You'll bring experts, they'll start talking about it. You'll end up spending literally 24-hour news cycles with just talking about terrorism. And when other people are listening to that, that implants in your head that it could be us next.
Well, Khalid's absolutely right with the experts. They bring in these talking heads. They don't have any. They've run out of real information, so they bring in these talking heads, these experts. I was a cop 30 years ago, or I worked at this university and studied this, and they spout this crap, and we see it all the time. 9 times out of 10, they're 100% wrong. We see it on environment. We see it on Charlie Kirk. We see it on every issue. They bring in some moron who spouts off because he wrote a book or is going to write a book or is trying to hawk a book. And they're always wrong. But you know what? They always bring them back. They never say, sorry, Bill, you were absolutely wrong last time. You can't come on this time. Nope. They call them right back.
Jeff, great case in point. There was one dumb SOB who was on a panel last week on MSNBC who posited this theory that the round ricocheted off of a body panel.
Yeah.
And now the lemmings keep repeating that when the chances of happening is zilch.
Yep. Yeah.
Anybody who's tested body armor or shot it or seen somebody shoot it doesn't work that way. If he was wearing 3A panels, like I'm sitting on one, I'll pull it out in a second, a rifle round sails right through it. If it was a steel plate, it would pile up into a blob and literally fall off. We've shot steel plates inside boxes, or it would shatter, to break apart into a bunch of pieces. And if it's a ceramic level 4 plate, there's layers and it literally catches the projectile. But Randy, before we go to you, I just want to show something, because I think, Jeff, that Biden's comment was that a 9mm would blow your lung out, but it was some other idiot in Congress who said that the reason, and I think it was Sheila Lee Jackson. She's the one who said, well, you can't use an AR-15 to hunt deer with, because it explodes the entire deer. There's nothing left. That's why it's outlawed. That's why you can't use 5.56 when you're hunting.
Either that, or it's too small of a round. It's a varmint round.
Correct. Even if even if you were allowed to use 5.56, you can't do it because it's cruel punishment, because you're not going to kill it. But here, check this out. If you want to see, everybody wants to have some idea of the different projectiles.
Yeah.
So here we go. This is a 338 Lapua. Beside that is a 6.5 Creedmoor. Beside that's a 7.62 by 39 AK round. Beside that is a 5.56 round, and beside that's a 300 blackout round. Look at how small that itty bitty 5.56 is. I'll pull it out so that it's separate, so that you can see it's an order of magnitude smaller. Put against my hand so you can see. That's the projectile. Just that little piece on the tip right there.
Look at that Lapua round, which is pretty close to the 7.62, right? That's what your grandpa killed Nazis with.
Yep.
That and that little one in your other hand is what people were trying to shoot in Vietnam. Tell me which one's going to be more effective.
Yeah, it's not hard to tell, but
it's basically a 30-06 round.
Yeah, don't disparage the 6.5 Kardashian. It's one of my favorite rounds, and all my buddies call it 6.5 Kardashian because they think it's like a boutique round or something. But it's a pretty deadly round.
Well, the Creedmoor's it's a good round, but if I'm going to get shot with a big solid bullet, I'd rather it not be, a 7.62 round. That's a big ass bullet.
It is. All right. So sorry, Randy, but we kind of cut you out of that.
Yeah, I know.
The conversation. My apologies for that. We've got you back in here now. So here's my next question, because I'm assuming that you probably saw some stuff on this topic when you were in the Middle East, but how do attackers use symbolism and messaging to heighten fear? We know the messaging part, and you're welcome to speak to it, because much like yourself, whenever I hear that music before they behead somebody, it's just, I can't even listen to the music anymore without automatically having my watch go off and saying that, you know, I'm very upset, mad, and I'm going to have a heart attack.
Well, mine was prayer time, which obviously the prayer times I heard, they weren't saying prayer anymore. It was basically propaganda against Americans. So, you know, it's because it's a psychological effect, right? And then it also confuses people, which is the same thing of what we're talking about here. You know, if we lose our first responders, if we lose the electricity and we lose our ability to communicate, people are going to freak out just because they don't know what to do. And now they have all the mechanisms they're used to having at their disposal is all gone.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that there instills fear in itself. And when the enemy uses symbolism, well, it's something that's been done forever, right? The Bible has a lot of symbolism in it.
It does.
So I think that is why we see also evil forces use symbolism. And because it's a statement and it's something that, you know, well, I don't know. I'm trying to think of some advertisement we've had here in America. You know what I mean? It's that same ad that you hear. You might hate the product, but you've heard the commercial and it has some kind of little jingle to it that now you're singing it in your head for the next 2 hours, even though you can't stand this product.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Remember the Coca-Cola
So
stuff?
that is how messaging and symbolism works.
Yep.
It permeates all the way into the psyche. And that's what we're looking at.
I appreciate that, Randy. Thank you. So that puts us at the end of segment 3. So we're going to move into segment number 4. Just want to give a quick shout out to our primary sponsor of tonight's episode, which is Carnivalt, carnivalt.com. Freeze-dried American beef, chicken, and pork, 25-year shelf life. A bag like this weighs 6 ounces, makes 1.5 pounds of raw steak. It's an incredible product. I see Randy's got his Carnivalt hat on there, and
I had the chicken for lunch.
So, but just before we jump back into segment 4, what did you say to me when just before you got your first order of Carnivalt chicken about not eating chicken in how many years?
Well, what I said was, you know, I'm divorced now. I've been divorced from my first wife has been 12, 13 years now. However, throughout our entire marriage and time we were together was 17 years, and we have 2 kids. My oldest is 30 and my youngest is 25. And one of the things we ate the most was chicken. I mean, we grilled almost every night, whether beef, chicken, whatever. We were always using the grill, but we ate a ton of chicken. But what I've noticed in the last few years, and it's been the last several years, maybe even the last decade, chicken wasn't the same. Like, when I buy a breast of chicken in the package where you can buy 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you want to buy, used to that was actual chicken. But what I've noticed when I started grilling this stuff is it was more rubbery and it had a different texture. And I didn't even really like the taste. I didn't even like chicken anymore. I'm like, something's not right. Because one, I knew that's not how chicken is. And so that was what I told you. I said, hey, I don't know what's wrong with chicken. Now, if you buy the whole chicken, then I got chicken. And even when I pulled the breast out, it was like what I've always known it to be. But when I went and bought it, like I said, separately in packages as chicken breast, something's not right with that product. And so then when you told me about the Carnival, I said, hey, man, if their chicken is good, don't have that rubbery, then it's on. I'm sold.
and that rubbery texture, by the way, is from gluing hunks of meat together and trying to tell you that it's a solid chicken breast. They're doing it with steaks now, where they're gluing together scraps of steaks and trying to sell it to you as a premium cut. It's absolute BS. Couldn't be worse. All right, let's jump into segment number 4. So this portion is on intelligence, aimed towards some level of prevention and what the response challenges are. So there are certain things that government agencies and hospitals, etc., they must anticipate some things or they're going to be caught up shit's creek without a paddle. And unfortunately, as Khalid will tell you, the majority of our agencies, like the vast majority, not just the majority, and the vast majority of our hospitals are not prepared for this. They do not have any SOPs related to defending against this stuff. They have no training. It's very discouraging. Okay.
Yeah, there was a question earlier, Chris. Somebody asked if the military and our intelligence agencies and the police knew about this and what they were doing. So we can kind of, now they're ignoring it.
Yeah, good point. So Clete will tell you, we get people constantly reaching out, daily basis, law enforcement, hospitals, and a multitude of other agencies. And we've had some of these guys come back to it and say, I took all of your work, I took Sarah Adams' work, etc., to my chief, and he said he doesn't believe it because it's not coming from the feds. So normally what happens is the feds have information that they distill to the states in turn distill it to the county level and city PD, and that's essentially the chain of command. And Donald Trump is hell-bent and determined to get at least one Nobel Peace Prize because Obama got one, but he really wants two of them so he can best Obama. And essentially what's happened is he's fine with paying the Taliban $87 million a week to smile to our face while stabbing us in the back. And word from up above and our sources that are inside the White House have flat out said that there is a edict of sorts that says no wars, no talk of attacking other countries unless it's something, like Iran with the nukes, potentially Venezuela. But they don't want to hear about all these confrontations because it might harm Donald Trump's ability to get a Nobel Peace Prize. And I like Donald Trump. I voted for him 3 times. But I think what's happened is we've got the nomination of Sebastian Gorka as his right-hand man on, national security and terrorism. Are you kidding me? A smart guy who doesn't know anything about this stuff. And now he's kissing the Taliban's ass, and him and Tom Barrack are kissing Giuliani's ass in Syria. And they're not passing the intelligence on that they have. Now, the good news is here in Florida, if you're a Floridian, I'm not going to say we're in great shape, but we are in better shape than any other state in the country because Sarah Adams has gone above and beyond, and she has briefed almost every single sheriff in the state of Florida, and we have 68 of them. So we're somewhat a little bit better prepared than other states, but I don't think we're prepared good enough per se. So intelligence and trying to predict what's coming. Intelligence agencies, they monitor things like chatter across the internet. They do reconnaissance missions. We've got satellites as well, of course. Jeff will tell you one of the biggest things is insider leaks. That was a big portion of Jeff's career in the CIA, was to recruit these guys to feed him information, feed us information. But from a challenge perspective today, we've got encrypted communications. Somebody sent something to me on X. It was a quote from Major Jeffrey Prather, who's a friend of ours. And he had made this comment that, any technology can be hacked, and it can, but there's a big caveat to attach to that. The encryption that's used by Signal, most of the algorithms, there's several of them that have been around 30 plus years, and they've never been cracked. And the reason they've never been cracked is because if you put a supercomputer to work on trying to crack those, which has happened, you can look up Sun Microsystems E15Ks that we used to sell. These are computers the size of fridges, 104 CPUs, started at $4 million, topped out at $20 million, fully loaded for things like human genome research and trying to crack encryption. You're talking years to crack encryption with that type of horsepower. So encrypted applications are a big, big problem. That's precisely why Macron took Pavel Durov hostage, basically, by tricking him into a dinner invitation. Pavel Durov is the guy who invented Telegram and basically said, either you give us a backdoor to your software, you're going to jail for violation of the DSA, Digital Security Act in Europe. So trust me, breaking that level of encryption, could it be done? Yes. Is anybody going to dedicate that kind of power towards breaking it? No, because the juice ain't worth the squeeze. End of story. So other challenges are, and Clete has spoken about this before, a lot of these guys who are going to be directly involved in the attacks, think of it this way. Randy, what's the ratio of support personnel per guy on the front lines with a gun now.
So when I was in, I'm sure it's still the same, but when I was in the Army, and certainly, and I started off in the infantry, just like everybody, well, like a lot of people. And what we were always told is it took 11 support soldiers to support one infantry soldier to be able to do his job.
Thank you for that number. So the same methodologies in effect with these sleeper cells. So as Khalid's explained, these guys would walk across the southern border, they would call a number, somebody would pick them up, and they would go to that location, and they're still at that location. They never leave, they never show their face. They're just sitting there waiting for the call to come to activate as a sleeper cell. So that poses a really big problem as far as being identified by any type of intelligence. And you know what, at this point, I think that's a great off ramp for me to hand it over to you and just go ahead and explain the intelligence process, how it's so necessary for prevention, and the challenges so that we come up with viable responses, which we don't have. We just flat out don't have.
No. Look, let's start from the agencies in the U.S. The FBI knows, but they're not doing anything. Homeland Security knows, but they're not doing anything. CIA knows, but they're not doing anything because Donald Trump says we're not doing anything. We're not. This won't happen. This won't happen because Seb Gorka is telling him that we can't be attacked. The Taliban is our friend. They're not going to attack us. They're doing whatever they want in Afghanistan. So this attack will never come. Problem one. Problem two. The police force in any city is trained for minor crimes. And we've seen it with the active shooters. When you look at how the active shooters are operated, our police force has not been able to handle it. You had a bunch of police arrive at one location and they couldn't get the active shooter for 3-4 hours, and it'd be one person. That's one person. You'd send in 11, 12 people after one guy. When you have multiple locations being hit, you can't do that. And the problem we see with everyone we talk to, if you remember that one guy sent us an email, I'm not going to mention his name. He wanted us to help connect him with GWAT veterans. It's not like we have a database of GWAT veterans in every city in the US that we get, okay, we can connect you with him. We're trying to build a network from people that we know, people that understand what's coming, people that care about the US, that want to see something happen. I mean, look at it from my point of view. I'm sitting in Pakistan, and I'm more worried about the US than I am Pakistan.
Dude, that's a mouthful.
Now, when you talk about how we're going to respond to it, I am at the point of saying, look, your response has to be military because your police force can't do it. Your sheriff's department can't do it. Your SWAT team can't do it. What do you have left? So if you've got GWAT veterans in every city that gets hit, they'll have to come out and fight because they've seen it, they understand it, they can fight. But I don't understand why every police station, every police department says, if we don't hear from the federal government, we're not going to listen. The federal government is busy with declaring terrorism on gangs, declaring terrorism on cartels, they're declaring terrorism on drug smugglers. You're not looking at the left-wing radicals. You're not looking at the right-wing radicals. So terrorism's definition is completely changed. And the administration, the way it's operating right now, you are not even thinking about an Al-Qaeda move inside of the U.S. You're worried about the cartels. And when you're thinking about the cartels, you're stuck because judges let them go. I mean, the guy that killed the Irina, the judge today sent him to a mental hospital to figure out whether he's capable of handling a court case.
Yep.
Your terrorists are counting on that they'll carry out the attack. They'll go in front of a judge. They'll get bail. They'll be out on the streets again. And committing these crimes is not a big deal for them because that's what they do. The terrorist mentality, the thing that drives them is that I'm willing to sacrifice my life. And
Right.
when you have someone who's more interested in sacrificing his life than continuing to live, that's a difficult battle to win.
Well, because they think they're going to be delivered to paradise. So,
Yeah, but it's not. It just doesn't happen that way.
and they're 72 virgin goats. So, Jeff, I actually have two questions for you. The first one is just based on your experience. What signals or activities most reliably predict an impending attack and potential follow-up attacks? Like, what would strike you as something that makes it relatively obvious that the fecal matter is fixing to hit the oscillating device?
Well, I would think College, given his experiences in life, is probably more apt to answer that question than I am. But there's always the chatter is. Yeah, well, there wasn't a whole lot of chatter before 9/11. I mean, they just did it. A disciplined group doesn't talk. They get their marching orders, they go get ready, and then they get a signal. It could be a phone call in the middle of the night. It could be any number of things. It's not going to be a long, drawn-out conversation that the FBI, NSA, or anybody else can intercept, and then they're going to act. So if it's a professional group, you're not going to get a lot of that.
I appreciate that answer. So,
well, let's just take Osama bin Laden, right?
Yeah.
Once he went to Pakistan, he never used another electronic. He didn't come outside. Only one guy would come to him and get the message, and then he would go out and disseminate it.
Yep.
So they got smart, and that's what you're going to see.
It took years to track him down because they had to basically track all the couriers.
Yeah.
That's why it took.
Can I add to this?
Sure.
The way your terrorists are operating right now inside the U.S., you got your sleeper cell that has a handler. The handler is responsible for all communications. So what we've learned is whatever you hear in chatter, whatever you hear in phone calls, they've scripted that phone call. They're not actually talking about what you need to hear. They've scripted a call so that CIA, NSA will pick up that call, they'll listen to it, and they'll go, oh, okay, nothing's going on. But in that call, it's code words.
Yep.
Right now, the reason it operates so well is they're all operating from dead drops. They have gone back to human. So whatever you hear is not what's actually going on.
So
we got those electronics locked down. So that's why we drove them to that.
The follow-up question I had for you, Jeff, was how do we balance liberty and security during active terrorist attacks?
Yeah, that's always tough because you're going to catch the bad guys. You're going to need to limit the travel of the bad guys. You can't let them just go where they want. So you've got to basically clamp down, but then you're clamping down on everybody else.
Yeah.
The big thing is, when do you let it back off? The problem we had with the Patriot Act, it's a great idea. We're going to listen to all the phone calls of all the bad guys in the world, except they were also listening to Americans' phone calls. And then they got to the point, well, we can use this for all sorts of other stuff too. They never dial it back. They just dial it up.
Yep.
And it's like inflation. Prices always go up. They rarely go down. It just becomes a new normal. Bread used to be a nickel a loaf. It never went back to a nickel a loaf.
No.
So you just got to say, okay, how much are you willing to give up? It's like the old thing, you're trading security for freedom. I, for one, I'm not willing to trade a whole lot of security for my freedom. I'm a pro-freedom guy.
I couldn't agree more. So, Randy, since you were a paramedic in a former life, what's your thoughts on how hospitals and EMS in particular should prepare for these attacks, especially that second wave of attacks that gets lobbed at paramedics and EMTs in particular?
Well, here's what they should do, but I don't think they're going to, right? Or we would see that already happening because it's getting to the point it's almost too late. But they should limit access points. It's no different. That's what you do in any building that you're going to have. You think that you may have a problem. You're going to have to limit the access amount of doors that are open and open freely or not. Just like now we've locked school doors during school was in session, right? When me and you went to school, that was not a thing.
Yeah.
The doors were wide open. Shit, some of them were left wide open, but none of them were locked. And so I think they would go to that. We've talked about how some of them have card key access. Well, if you think that this one's, could be one of the 15, maybe everybody should go to a key card access. And that way, each person that's come in, because that's what key card access gives you by the punch of a button. You can see everybody that just badged in, and those, you might even have them badge out. If you're in a skiff, right, for the military or for the government, you have to badge in and you have to badge out. You can't even ride in the door with somebody that just badged in. I saw this happen at McDill. Old boy didn't listen, and he walked in right behind somebody else. They said, "Hey, you need a badge." And he goes, "Oh, that's good." They did, within 5 minutes, the security forces were up there to get his ass, and they took him downstairs. I don't know what happened, but so you would more control the access, right? And then really you should have more armed guards. We put them in banks and courtrooms for a reason. And now that we know we have a problem in some of these hospitals, they probably should have more armed guards. However you do that, whether they're police officers or like we talked about with schools, we got plenty of veterans out there that'd be more than happy to come help you out with that and protect that property. Then it comes down to some of the protocols, and if people don't need to be there, they don't need to be there. And there's a whole lot of metrics you could go to basically where you've controlled the traffic coming in and out and who they are. That would be the biggest thing right there. And then to harden the outside so somebody just can't come running a vehicle through the door, and then everybody and to have some people charge in afterwards. You would put barricades outside so that they could not do that. We've done that at courtrooms, and we've definitely done it in a lot of federal buildings. After Oklahoma bombing, right? They put an end to that. So we would just put some of those metrics in place to, if nothing else, make it much more difficult for them to be successful, even if they came to try to hit the hospital.
Yeah. Well, target hardening works, right?
Yes, it does.
I don't remember.
The DEI mavens take that money and hire guards.
That's exactly right.
I don't know if
it's there. You just got to prioritize where you're going to spend it on.
I don't know if you were on the episode or not, Randy, but there's a hospital that shall remain unnamed in this general part of the country that has 158 entrance/exits. They have 5 security guards. 1 security guard has a sidearm. The other 4 do not have a sidearm. They either have, OC or pepper spray or a taser, and not one of them is under 300 pounds. That's
that
hospital.
Yeah, I would say that hospital is prime for something like this to happen. And the amount of success that you could have very easily in an installation like that is shameful. They would not be able to stop one thing. They would literally take over that. And I see some people talking about the key cards. Yes, key cards can be, but they have to be managed. It's just like when you're in the military and you have a top secret clearance or any secret clearance, there is a managing partner in there that runs all those clearances, and they run all the badges too. So there's some things you can do, but yes, there is nothing we're going to do that if somebody doesn't have the time and the resources and the ability that they can't get around, folks. That we ourselves have proven that all over the world. So nothing is going to be for sure, but you have to do something to mitigate that. And certainly hardening the target would be the best thing. I get it, key cards aren't the greatest, but you have to do something to limit access, and then to know exactly who you have in the hospital as far as staff and volunteers and stuff like that, and who's at home.
Yeah, I mean, key cards at a bare minimum Khalid will tell you, though, that we've looked into this pretty in depth. 56% of American hospitals have missing key cards that have not been taken out of their system. So they still,
which is why your managing partner is a very important piece.
big time. And the next part to that would be, it takes 2 seconds to shoot somebody who's an employee and take their key card and go wherever you want based on what their credentials were. I'm very much on the fence when it comes to biometrics being used, like your retinal scan or fingerprints and stuff like that. But that's quite possibly the one and only way to prevent those types of situations from unfolding. The only
Well,
other,
I agree with you, Chris, because if they have those biometrics, someone can use them against you.
yeah,
And it's been proven we
slippery.
can't trust our own government. So,
oh hell yeah, yeah, slippery slope
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not endorsing that. So next segment 5, is on future scenarios. I think we might have a couple case studies in here, but essentially, hospital attacks worldwide. There's a study. I think I may have actually sent it out already. That I've lost my train of thought on that one. I'll come back to that in just a second. We've got a hypothetical U.S. scenario of day 2 involving highways, hospitals, and command centers all being shut down. The cascading effects that happen, especially infrastructure being lost, as Khalid mentioned, the Chinese taking stuff down, and what the prevention tools may just look like, or forecasting risk by using AI and modeling stuff. So I think I have one article I can pull up pretty easily for you here, Khalid, that I'll have you speak to. Let me get that up on screen here. So let's see here. All right. So the rising threat of terrorist attacks against hospitals. So this paper, the introduction is, hospitals are vulnerable to terrorist attacks as they must remain easily accessible to the general public. Hospitals are also occupied with both staff and patients 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, meaning that any attack is almost guaranteed to inflict a multitude of casualties. In addition to the immediate effects of attacking a hospital, there are also uniquely devastating second and third order effects when hospitals are attacked. So I'll leave it at that because I don't want to steal your thunder, Khalid. So, hey, we're missing Randy on this. There we go.
I was just
Yeah, different stage. So I'm going to let you pick it up from here, Khalid, as far as what do the scenarios look like, and how does that compare to hypothetical case studies?
Okay, let's start with the hospital. There's a question on nuclear weapons in our live chat. They're not going to use nuclear weapons on this attack. This attack is chemical weapons and bio weapons, no nuclear. So you don't need to worry about that. When you look at a hospital, you have easy access to every area. There are, because my wife works in a hospital, so I kind of know how they work. There are areas that you must have a key card to enter. So you may be able to go from the emergency room to another ward, but you can't go to another ward without a key card to enter. So if your intent is to go through the entire hospital, you can't unless you got a card. And that's their idea of security is that. The problem is when you are dealing with a terrorist, he's shooting to kill and the key card is available to you. So what you need to do is you need to harden outside. Put a security guard outside. Set those concrete barriers in a zigzag motion, in a snake motion, so that anything coming in has to go slow. So you can get a look at it. Your guards can stop them, ask them, "What are you coming for? Who are you? Are you sick?" It may be annoying to the patient, but it's for their security you're asking these questions. The problem we have is most hospitals aren't even taking this seriously. So when you talk to a hospital, they go, "Well, it's our governing body, the hospital's governing body does not say that, this is the attack that's coming." So they don't ramp up their security. The hospital that my wife works in has now 4 times updated their security. So now you have armed guards at the door. You have concealed weapons inside the hospital on security guards. They're just walking around the hospital. There's a lot. When 1 or 2 hospitals pay attention, they start ramping up their security. The problem is that when you ramp up your security, you've got to ramp it up with more than just, a pistol. The guys coming in are not carrying pistols. They're carrying AKs. They're carrying ARs. You're not going to do anything with a pistol. And if, God forbid, they launch a bioweapon attack, you're handicapped straight away. Straight away, you're handicapped. Now, there's a question: what's the percentage of this attack happening? This has been planned since 2021. They are going to carry out this attack 85, 90, 90%. So we're that sure this attack is going to happen. The problem is you're all looking at the federal government to issue a warning, tell the hospitals to do something, tell the law enforcement to do something. That's not going to work because everyone is asleep. And this is why I keep saying September 10th, because before 9/11, no one believed it could happen. And when it happened, everyone went into a shock. When this happens, you're going to have much more than a shock. You will literally get PTSD.
Yeah, no question at all. So, Jeff, wondering just off the top of your head, what are things that these hospitals could do relatively quickly to harden them as targets? Get the most juice for the squeeze, in other words, to use that adage again.
Well, one thing is lock down all these 8 million exit doors. You alarm them, make it where they're only open. You can only open them from the inside, that kind of thing. On the major entrances, man traps, where you have 2 doors and you come in one door and the second door won't open unless the first door is closed. That keeps people from rushing in after someone and gaining access. Using either wired tempered glass, or something that is much more difficult to break through. If you get a wired glass, even if you sit there and blast it with a shotgun, it doesn't disintegrate like regular glass. And you can't just force your way through. Now, if you use a vehicle or a bomb, you'll open it up. But they're very difficult to break through. And that way, instead of the terrorists funneling the people inside, you're funneling the terrorists through a very limited number of openings. And then even in those entry areas or those waiting rooms, you have doors that go beyond that can only be opened with the proper key card or something like that. So they can't just go blasting into the waiting room or the emergency room and then have access to the entire hospital. They still can't just go through the doors. And the lady who's there takes your information like a bank teller, put it behind bulletproof glass where you guys slide the information. And a lot of them already have this because they don't want people getting threatened with with knives and things.
True.
But you make it more difficult so that they look at that and go, okay, this isn't going to work. Let's go somewhere else, because they're going to case all these places.
Yep. Absolutely. They've already cased them. So, Randy, I want to pull up one of the studies that I had and want to ask you what your thoughts are and how you defend against this. So this is a study on attacks on EMS since 1970 through to 2019. They were able to identify 184 terrorist attacks against EMS over essentially a 50-year period. And the conclusion in this paper was it demonstrates that terrorist attacks against EMS have significantly increased during the years, and that secondary attacks are an emerging risk, which is bombings and explosions being the most common form of attack. So, unfortunately, you got hit by an IED and it cost you a leg and plus more and more. is there anything that can be done for, paramedics and EMTs going out in ambulances to protect them against IEDs or other types of bombs?
Well, I think like right now, I think if these attacks kick off and that has started, then there's definitely some protocols that need to be put into place. But right now, if you just got a call, it's not going to. There is none. That's the unfortunate side of this truth. It's because we live in America where we're free, right? And we've been able to live with these comforts and this. We've been afforded this kind of living by our freedoms, and we're used to. If you're a EMS or you're a firefighter, you didn't really need protection except for from the fire, from a building collapsing or another wreck. You know what I mean? It wasn't geared. We haven't ever been geared to defense ourselves against some sort of attack, even an IED. There is no protection for that. There just isn't. And I don't think there would be. There's not a whole lot you can do because we'll just take the one that hit me, right? So let's just go through the little evolution of Iraq, right? So once the 3 weeks ended and we took Baghdad, and then as I told you, all the criminals came out. The first thing were, mines, right? They would use mines as IEDs are on the side of the road. Another thing that was real big that circulated real fast is they were using dead dogs and dead donkeys, right? They would load that up with explosives. And when you drove by or drove over it, it would blow up. So then what? So then we started doing, we started putting in protocols to get around that, right? And then the next thing, we're building vehicles, these RG vehicles with, boat bottom types, big, thicker vehicles, all supposedly to help mitigate an explosion from an IED. So then Iran shipped in the EFPs onto the battlefield. And let me tell you, if we're talking about something like an EFP, there is nothing that stops it. We didn't have one vehicle. Mine, the one I was in, was a brand new 1151 Humvee that was built from the ground up to be up armored, right? But previous to that, there were some up armored vehicles, but most Humvees were not. So what we start doing, bolting more armor on them and putting sandbags in everything we could do to harden that vehicle. What did they do? They made bigger bombs. And if they weren't bigger bombs, it was the EFP, the shape charge. And so the EFP, the shape charge, is a copper round. And when it goes off, it heats that copper up to a gas. So now you have a gas bullet. So when I was there, it went through that 1151 Humvee that I was in like it was paper mache. I saw an M1 Abrams that it went through like it was a hot knife with warm melted butter. In one side, out the other. Cut three of those guys in half. Cut them 3 in half as it went through. RG vehicles, same thing. I've got a kid in strikers. There's a kid at the gym I know. He's missing both his legs up so high he cannot wear prosthetics. Now his arms look like legs, so he's kind of got around that. But that guy's in the wheelchair for the rest of his life, and he was in a striker. So there's nothing that we're going to do that's going to stop that type of explosive because even our military vehicles did not. So we're kind of at the mercy of that. But like I said, if these attacks start, there can be some things that done because, you'll have to make sure if it's a real call before you actually send out. And we already have some protocols in place, as we spoke about previously. Like if it's a shooting or it's a mass shooting or something like that, your EMS and your firefighters are not going in there until the police have secured that area. So that's one way we would do that, right? You wouldn't send them in there until you knew it was safe. Now, the unfortunate side of that, people are going to die in emergency situations because someone didn't get there fast enough. But it's just one of those things. This is the real world. You can't have it all.
Those shape charges, that's really
there's no joke. Those things are serious.
Very disconcerting for sure.
And I'm dead serious. We don't have one vehicle in our arsenal that it doesn't go in one side all the way through and out the other side and keeps going. Every one of them.
Yeah, that's
just for they showed us a shape charge back in the day when I was with the agency, and and they were setting them off and stuff. And they had one. It was, probably that big around, about that,
Oh, that's a big one too.
Yeah, it was a big one. And they set it up, shot it down because they said, yeah, they need to put in a new telephone pole. They said, well, rather than dig the hole, let's just use shape charge and just blast the hole and then drop it in there. Well, they blasted the hole with the shape charge. These were all explosives guys, so they're a little crazy anyway. Well, when they got the pole and dropped it in the hole, it disappeared.
Yeah.
The hole it drilled was longer than the telephone.
Drop another one in there. Let's get a second pole.
That's how powerful those things are.
Yeah, it's no joke. That's in engineering terms, it tamps it, right? So then it forces, like a regular IED or a bomb or plastic explosives, anything, a grenade, in fact, when there's nothing to, like in urban areas, buildings and mountains and rocks will change that a little bit. But if there's nothing there, the force dissipates in a 360-degree bubble, goes out in all directions. However, shape charge takes all that energy and focuses in one direction. Yep. And that is why it makes it so much more powerful.
Yep.
Yeah, appreciate the in-depth explanation and appreciate your anecdotal example, Jeff. That's absolutely crazy. So we're on the final segment here, segment 6, and it's really just a wrap-up segment. So first and foremost, I wanted to recap one of the 2-day concepts or day 2 concepts that there's been credible intelligence available on for probably 20 plus years now. And so this was a threat plan that was put out by Hezbollah, to the best of my knowledge, that basically said that they would have sleeper cells in a small county. So think a county with 200,000 or less people, and they would have a dozen terror cells, and they would plan to attack 12 schools all at the same time in that small county. And obviously law enforcement, even with mutual aid, would not have enough to respond to all 12 attacks. They would respond to one of the attacks, maybe half-ass the second or third, but pretty much the first attack. And so they would sacrifice their men, right? The terrorists would sacrifice that particular cell. Then the next day, they go to another county nearby that has less than 200,000 people in it, and they attack 11 schools simultaneously, and they lose a cell. The third day, they go to another small county and they attack 10 schools. And the effects of that were war gamed out by a 4-letter agency that I won't name because it's how the intelligence came to me, was that after the first day, nobody's sending their kids to school. After the second day, nobody's going to work. After the third day, you have things completely melting down from a supply chain perspective. Your local grocery typically has 3 days worth of food on the shelf. When a product level reaches a certain point, it triggers an automatic PO to be sent out by what's called a 3, 4, or 5 PL system. Stands for third party logistics. So the PO goes out to the distributor, the bill of lading goes out to the logistics company, the invoices are all automated, everything is automated, and then the food shows up because they've hit that particular threshold. There is no paper backup, there's no additional way of doing this. So not only do you have the supply chain breaking down because people don't want to go to work because they're scared to death they're going to get killed, but when you start taking down data networks, even though many of these businesses have redundancy built in, it gets really hard to cut POs, especially when you don't have drivers at the logistics firms that are willing to travel and take that in. So I'm going to leave the rest for everybody else to speak to as far as the psychological effects, wrap up on that, practical steps for individuals. Like to hear y'all's thoughts on situational awareness, emergency plans, and that's basically it. I'm going to turn it over to Khalid and then Jeff and Randy for final words on this. Go ahead.
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to understand what's going on around you. Leave this. I'll tell you what I do. When I'm out in the market, I don't touch my phone. I'm looking around because I know that this terrorist mixed into the market. So my phone never comes out of my pocket. That's because if I'm looking at my phone, I make myself a target because I'm not paying attention to what's going on around me. When this happens, the fear, the shock that you get, that's gonna stick you in one place, and you're gonna have to. This is why I keep saying, stay in your head, because if you stay in your head, you can think. If it goes into the body, you're done. You're gonna freeze. So you got to keep telling yourself, like, breathe, take a step, do this, do this. You got to tell yourself that, so you stay up here. That way you're conscious to what's going on around you as well. As far as what can happen with this is going to be a rolling thing. I will lay this out. This will go on for 1 week, not 1 or 2, 3 days. This will go on for 1 week because they'll be hitting target after target after target after target. And they're going to implant this fear in you. IEDs exploding, cars exploding. Randy, remember, when you run, when explosions would happen, car bombs would blow up. There'd be little ball bearings, nails, all inside the explosive. They're going to do the same thing there. And you have to understand that this is going to be very difficult for everyone. Your police is gone, your fire department's gone, your EMS is gone. You have no protection anymore. And to understand what's going on, you have to be mentally aware. And you have to start from now. Based on our timeline, you've got 2-3 months to get ready. In 2-3 months, you need to map out your way home from different ways. You need to start stocking up on food. You need to make sure you have a backup electricity system when the power goes out. You need to make sure that any medications you need to have, you have those as well. Because once this happens, the first step is looters. They'll come and loot stores. Then you get marauders. Then you get the gangs involved. Then you get other people involved. Everyone takes advantage of the chaos. So it doesn't stop. And you've got to keep that in your head that once it starts, you don't have any way out.
No. All right. I thought you were going to carry on from there. Thanks. I was just giving you an opportunity to think thoughts. Jeff.
Well, Cullen's absolutely right, but you got to realize, okay, you got to be mentally prepared that if you're out and about and something happens, you got to first get off the X. 2, figure out your situation. 3, figure out how to get home or wherever you're going to go. Again, multiple routes, multiple ways to do that. When you're home, is it fortified? Can you defend it? Defend your home, and then maybe you can spread and defend your neighborhood. You know your neighbors. If a neighbor shows up, you know who he is. When a stranger shows up, a little different. So if your neighbors can form a mutual aid group there, you can secure that area. The other thing is realize, okay, if you're properly prepared, do you really have to go anywhere right away? No. You've got your food. You've got your way to defend yourself. You've got water. You've got power, and you've got neighbors that you can rely on, or a mutual aid group that you can rely on. You don't have to go to work right away. You don't have your kids will not die if they don't go to school for 3 or 4 days. We saw that during COVID. They can not go to school for a freaking year. But just realize that sometimes hunkering down is not a bad thing. If you are not the focus of the attack, that's not a bad thing to kind of wait and see what happens. Now, if they're going door to door and there's 100 of them and they're on your street and you're making their way your way, yeah, you may have a decision to make. But I don't think there's going to be that many. But you also got to be prepared to do whatever you have to do to defend yourself and your family. And don't hesitate. If you hesitate, you're dead.
Yeah, fair enough. Let me show you something. This was the alternate, Jeff, that I was going to use for our thumbnail because I felt the underlying theme to all the psychology that the terrorists work so hard to concoct this is really about breaking our spirit as Americans and as a country. So that was a close second as far as the thumbnail was concerned for today. So Randy, you've got last say on tonight's topic.
Well, they both had some very good advice, and I would just kind of echo that. You know, if you're one of those that is not in one of these 15 cities, you don't need to go there. Like Jeff said, just stay home, hunker down. And if things come your way, believe me, you'll know. If you are one of those that happens to be, and if you're so unfortunate that you are where it's happening, because I had my trainer the other day, right? He came up and said, hey, you know, I think my wife watched that Sarah chick. What's her call sign? I said, super bad. He said, yes. I said, oh, well, good. You guys are already dialed in. He said, so man, if somebody showed up here, what should I do? I said, well, first of all, the good thing this gym has is it's not just one entrance in and out. They have a couple of other exits. Right. I said, and then you got the windows all the way out to the parking lot. So if you see something going down, I'm telling you right now, get the hell out of here. You take one of these back exits and then you quietly get out the exit to outside, because trust me, they could be waiting there too. So you want to make sure that's clear before you just go busting out and run out into the parking lot. I said, but you know, here he goes. So me running off is not cowardice? I said, hell no, it's not. That's what you're supposed to do. Now, if you're at the door when they walk in and you literally can grab them and there's something you can do, you probably should, because those are going to be the only people that have that opportunity to stop this right there. But if you're not one of those people, don't go running over there to try to do it. Just get out. There's nothing cowardice about that. That's called survival, buddy. And this is an attack that is cowardice to begin with. So you don't have to be some sort of hero unless you find yourself in the situation that you are easily able to do that. You shouldn't have to force it, because if you force it, you know, things can go bad very quickly for people. You know what I mean? And these are the type of things you don't get a second chance.
Yep.
So, you know, I'm with Jeff. If you can stay home, that's exactly what we all need to do until something else dictates that isn't going to work. Like if some point we don't have law enforcement, you know, and it degrades even further and we're going to have to come out and deal with it ourselves, then that's the time you start going around and gathering up folks and figuring out a plan on how you're going to do this. But unless that situation doesn't come down, you don't need to go get out in the middle of it either.
Yeah, what you're describing, there's a prepper acronym for it called WROL, without rule of law, essentially,
yes,
is the scenario there. So that's the end of our main topic for tonight. Khalid, could you do me a favor and paste a link to the cities that are on your list? I've seen a number of people asking for it, and appreciate it if you could do that. And we're moving on now to the last few things to wrap up tonight. And the first one is the hero of the day. And today I decided to choose more than just a hero. These are 40 genuine American heroes. This is the crew and passengers of Flight 93, the only plane that didn't hit an intended target. And all of these people, of course, lost their lives. So hats off to those 40 people for standing up and at least preventing even more deaths by the terrorists. So kudos on that one. The next one is the story of the day, submitted on our Signal chat, our private Signal chat, which I'll explain in a second. And on the left, you can see George Floyd holding a pistol to a pregnant woman's stomach, which he did. Yeah. And on the right, you have Charlie Kirk encouraging people to come up and talk, and
with a microphone. That was his weapon.
Correct. Yeah. Well said. And so Crixus in this particular instance says their hero is George Floyd. Our hero is Charlie Kirk. We're not the same, not even close. And to that I say,
well, I hope y'all noticed a bunch of cities didn't get burned down. No Main Street, no Wendy's, you know, And the left could keep saying it's both of us. And now they're like, well, they didn't pay attention to anybody. But we're still not asking for us to take away the guns, are we?
Well,
that is the difference.
Yeah, I don't know how far we want to go down this rabbit hole, but it is not hard to find compilations of Democrats in particular encouraging and inciting violence against other people, especially public officials like Donald Trump. I have repeatedly put the same call out there. If you have a video that shows a compilation of American conservatives telling people, encouraging people to go out and shoot the other side, kill the other side, send it to me, because I haven't seen it. And this is not both sides of the aisle. These are
because it's not there, Chris. You know the deal. It's not there.
Correct. I've asked for this countless times, and it's not both sides of the aisle. It's the shitbags on the left. It's all there is to it. And prove me wrong. End of story. Prove me wrong. So let's wrap up here on our conflicted question. Yep. My mind's racing ahead here. So this is an interesting question. Definitely calls morality into question. You've been approached by a post-apocalyptic community, which is very well known and respected, and they have invited you to join them. Food, water, and comfort awaits you and your family. However, there is only room for you and your family. Your buddies and their families depend on you and your skills, but the life you all live now is full of every kind of struggle. Would you join the community for the sake of your family and leave your buddies, or would you stay with your friends and continue to make your family suffer, and why? So, Randy, since you're center stage, you get to take first swing.
Well, Jeff gets the night off. You're welcome. This is a tough question. This is a very tough question. Initially, well, here's what I would do. First, I'm going to try to negotiate, right? Why? Okay, because we probably have some supplies too. If we didn't bring our supplies, why can the other family? I want to know why there's only room for me and my family and not the friends that I have, right? I would want to know what that is, and if there's a way that we can work towards that, to where we can get all, because as the card says, this is a well-known group. They're successful. So you would want, it's probably something in this type of environment you would want to be a part of. But what I'm not going to do, because obviously we've talked about, like, say we did this same thing and I built out my little network before this happened. And now that's who we've got here, right? These people depend on me. I'm not going to leave them to go with the better group, not just straight up leave them out there. And I get it. I have my family to worry about too, but I'm just trying to think of what is the moral and ethical thing to do here. Although in some instances, people say you throw that out. I say you never throw that out. There's always going to be moral, ethical implications to every single action and behavior that you do. So I would never just straight up leave these folks. I would have a hard problem with that. Certainly, I think about the friends that I would have now that would come here and join my little group. There's no way I would just leave them in an instant because another group showed up.
Fair enough. Good answer, Randy. So next up will be Jeff, just because.
Yeah, I agree with Randy. I can't imagine. The only exception would be is if I had a child who was like on the verge of death and this new group had something that could help them survive. I would not let my family die. Short of that, I've got an obligation to these people, and we're supporting each other. What I would do with them is say, look, okay, I can't join you. I appreciate the offer. What I'd like to do is, can we set up some sort of an arrangement, maybe where we trade food supplies and knowledge with each other, and then build up two strong communities that cooperate, as opposed to one stronger one and one where I let these people just die on the vine. I'm not going to do that. And put it to them this way and say, if I was willing to do that to my friends, what makes you think I wouldn't be willing to do that to you down the road?
Absolutely.
That's not the kind of person you want. You want the person who's going to be loyal and stick by his friends.
Yeah, that's one of Cindy's favorite adages. If they'll do it with you, they'll do it to you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That is a golden rule.
It is. Khalid?
Look, the guy's got skills, and I'm sure people in his group also have skill. I'm gonna trade off like Jeff did. We'll give you skills for food. We'll help you with work for food. Um, let's build both communities to be stronger. If they're not willing to accept that, I'd put my family there and I'd stay with my group because they depend on me for to do things for them. So I would put wife and child with them, and I would take care of what I need to with my group, because I'm a firm believer. Whoever brought you to the party, you stay with them.
Yeah.
You don't ditch the guys who brought you. And if it means struggling to get there, that's fine. But you don't ditch. That just doesn't happen.
Good answer. Good answer. I would probably come at this a little bit differently. I would probably initially accept their offer to see what they've got and see, what their resources were, how they were replenishing their resources, get to know them a little bit, earn some respect from them, and then say, listen, I've got to get back to helping my friends because, they need assistance. Is there any kind of deal that we could cut to bring them into the fold? And I would hopefully have some intelligence at that particular point in time to say, look, why don't you consider doing X, Y, and Z so we can bring them in? And I would also, position it as, here's some extra hands, and they're really good at doing tasks once you teach them how to do it and you assign it to them. And I can't leave them to fend for themselves anymore. So can we cut a deal of some sort? And if not, then I'm going back to my friends. But I would try and take a swing at it to make something happen at the very least.
I just want to bring up and reflect back on our answers where we had a certain question, right? And we weren't going to leave we weren't going to let the family leave our group. You remember some people even in the chat was like, well, we'll just smoke them because no one's leaving. So they might not let you leave, Chris. I'm just saying, just being the devil advocate.
No, they might. I mean, that's the whole thing with these questions, right? The context is always, kind of iffy at times. Yes. And it's really about, your morality, where you stand on this stuff. So that's it for tonight. I want to thank our guardians. So you can go to survivaldispatch.news, sign up for $7.99 a month or $75 a year, or you can just get a free membership. You get the daily sit reps, you get the Saturday watch guide, you get the early instructional videos from JJ Morris. There's lots of free stuff that's good stuff. If you can help support Survival Dispatch News, it takes a lot to run this operation, a lot of manpower, a lot of man hours. There's people in the background that you've never heard of or never seen. My wife, Grace McCutcheon, who's my right hand person on the editorial side, and more. And we couldn't do this if we didn't have guardians and we didn't have supporters like Carnival. Major thank you goes out to Carnival. These guys are our premier sponsor. They're a startup. If you buy products from them, we don't make anything off of them as far as affiliate income is concerned, but they give us a monthly stipend that helps us cover all the overhead. We're well over $4,000 a month just in software subscriptions to do all of the things that we do. So again, we appreciate both. Just back to the Guardians for a second. For $7.99, you get automatically enrolled in our SDN system, which is Survival Dispatch Emergency Notifications. You get an invite to our super high traffic Signal chat. It's insane, the volume of information that goes through there. I mean, insane. I put my phone down for a few hours, I pick it up and look at it and go, there's 300 messages I'm not going to read because I don't have the time. I'd love to, but there's just not enough time. I put my phone down for a few more hours, I pick it up and it's like, oh, there's another 300 I don't have time to read. I read what I can, but it's tough keeping up with it. But there's a metric shit ton of intelligence distributed through our Signal chat. And again, you get an invite when you sign up as a Guardian. You get all 37 of our Survival Dispatch Insider e-magazines. We sell them for $9.99 a piece. You're getting $370 worth of PDFs there for free. You get early access to the instructional videos, and you get all of our sources for our sit reps. But that is it for tonight. Now, tomorrow night, Khalid's going to be back with the Command 11 sit rep, and I'm going to sit in, and I may not be on stage other than the first half an hour, so I'll fade into the background and run the production side of things. But we've got my good friend General Paul Vallely coming on tomorrow night. He's going to spend approximately a half hour with us discussing the Charlie Kirk situation and everything that's in the same, orbit, for lack of a better term. And General Valley, if you don't know, was the first Special Forces soldier ever to ascend to the level of a general, did 3 deployments in Vietnam. At 70 some odd years old, and this is in Khalid's neighborhood, at 71 years old, he marched 400 troops into Aleppo in Syria at 71 years old. I mean, the guy's a living legend. He's the founder of Nemo Arms, which they actually make the only semi-automatic rifles that are approved for sniper use in our entire military. Everybody else has to, have bolt action. And I like them both. I like guns in general. So I'm not saying that one's better or worse than the other. So Wednesday night will be the next episode in this new series, Living in the Aftermath, America Under Siege. And this next episode is going to be all about the failure of infrastructure, power, water, transport, communications, all of it collapsing together to multiply the impact of what's just happened in 9/11 2.0. Other than that, I don't have anything else left to share tonight. Please,
All right, Chris, hold up.
please listen
There's
to
been
Randy's message.
Well, I'm just going to say there's a couple of people asking the list of cities Khalid posted. You'll have to scroll back up a couple of ways in the chat there. He posted a link that has the 15 cities, right?
You see the Command 11 URL behind me? Go to the site, scroll down a little bit. You'll see a box that says updated hospital threat assessment.
All right,
click on that, download the file.
Thank you, Khalid. There's about 4 different people that have asked. I'm like, he just posted
I'm watching where we posted it.
That's too funny. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys looking after that, and I appreciate you pointing that out, Randy.
Yep.
Most definitely. So between tonight and tomorrow night, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
God bless
God
America.
bless America.
And enjoy the closing video. It's a brand new one.